crafty friends, this is the Papered Chef here. In today's Brother ScanNCut tutorial, you are going to learn how to create Shrinky Dinks. Shrinky Dinks are fun. You take plastic and it's acetate that I've also shown you how to cut out acetate before. You're going to take special acetate called Shrinky Dink plastic and you're going to stamp onto it, and then the plastic is going to shrink and you're going to have lots of cute little embellishments from your stamps. Okay, so I will show you how to stamp, how to color, how to cut out these Shrinky Dinks, and we're using, for this tutorial, the SDX 125 Brother ScanNCut. And then I'm going to show you how to place them onto a cookie sheet or a baking sheet, how to bake the Shrinky Dinks, and then I'm going to give you some ideas on what to do with those Shrinky Dinks after you make them. So it's good to start with a large stamp, and that's why I picked this stamp set. Good for spring. So the large stamp I'm using is this duck. Now keep in mind, I'm going to show you the materials as we go, and there'll be links to all the materials. You can get the stamp set Fable Friends from my website here. Celebration's still going on, so you earn free things when you shop at my store. You need to use a big stamp. Any stamp you have will work, but use this kind of ink. Use Stazon ink. I've tried other inks and they slipped all over the place or ran all over. This is a permanent alcohol-based ink. Okay, and so use Stazon ink and use your stamps. Now I'm just using a stamping block D, which works really well for big stamps, for fairly big. I'm tapping onto the Stazon, and what I want to do is make sure I have good coverage, and I'm not sure if the feet are all covered. Sometimes it's better to turn your stamping block over to make sure you have good coverage, and then tap, tap, tap like this. And we will do a few ducks. We'll get our ducks in a row is what we'll do. And I'm just going to hold the plastic. I put it down on a piece of white paper just to see it better. I'm holding it for a few seconds and I lift it up. That looks good. Okay, so it's a good stamped image. And then we're going to do it again a couple more times. Okay. So tap, tap, tap. Stamp. It's good to be right over your stamped image so it doesn't slip. I mean, this project is good for the whole family. Let children do some stamping as well. Make their own Shrinky Dinks. And, you know, if you don't have a stamp set, but you have Shrinky Dink material, simply just use a Sharpie. Draw on your piece of acetate. I mean, draw on your Shrinky Dink material with a Sharpie. And then cut it out the same way I'm showing you. The ScanNCut will cut out whatever it sees. All right, so that's step one. So there are my stamped images. I know that one's probably going to do a good job, better than the others. So what I'm going to do now is this. I am going to stamp the rest of these. I'm not going to make you wait, so I'll stamp a whole page of ducks because that's how I roll. I'll stamp a page of ducks. And then I'm going to let them dry for about 10 minutes. Okay, so that's your step one. I mean, you stamp and Stazon ink. You let them dry for about 10 minutes. Then I'm going to color them, and I'll take out the coloring tools while they're drying. I'm going to show you how I color these stamped images, and then we'll get to the stage of cutting them out and some other fun. We'll have lots of fun in this tutorial. Okay, so see you in a little bit. In this section of the tutorial, you're going to learn how to color the ducks using both our Stampin Blends, which are a type of alcohol marker, and Sharpie markers. I've already colored a few for you, and we're going to be doing that next, but the first thing I want to explain is how I clean this stamp. So if you have a stamp and it's again, use a large stamp. If you don't clean it with the right kind of cleaner, you're going to end up with a black stain all over your stamp. So if you're using Stazon ink, then you need the Stazon cleaner. And my cleaner top is stained. So basically I put it in the sink. I just rinse this with water even though it still stayed black. And then I just rub this all over it. Okay, and then I rinse it off again. I have to do it like 4 times just to get the black ink off of this rubber. That's why this is stained a little bit. Okay, so don't squeeze this too much because you don't want to lose your solution. The solution will come out automatically as you sponge it onto your stamp. Okay, so rinse your stamp to make it wet. Again, nothing will happen when you rinse it. No, the black's going to stay on it. Rub the Stazon cleaner, rinse it off again. Rub the Stazon cleaner, rinse it off again. Okay, so if you have Stazon ink, then you need Stazon cleaner. Other types of ink I've tried on these Shrinky Dinks, and you know, it ran. All right, so speaking of running, So you might be noticing this, that when I stamped this duck, he was facing this way. Now you could color on the side. You could color on the side you stamped. I did let it dry for about 10 minutes. Just to be safe, and because I've had some run-ins with my markers and ink before, I just like to turn it over and color on the other side. I mean, after all, it is like acetate, right? It's clear, so you can color on the other side. All right, so now let's color the ducks using the Stampin Blends, which are alcohol markers. Even though this is going to shrink and you can't really tell that much, I still like to use coordinating colors when I color. So first I'm going to take this pumpkin pie. This is pumpkin pie. And I'm going to color in all the little duck feet. Okay? So do all your, if you're going to do something, when you're coloring, if you're going to color one color, just do it all at once. Trying not to get your hand to land in there. It is kind of slippery. The ink goes on really smoothly. Now, normally I don't even color before I cut, but Shrinky Dinks are one of those things that are easier to color on a solid white background, and before I cut, it's easier to color these. That's what I've found. So normally, like if I were using paper, I wouldn't be using alcohol markers with alcohol ink. Like I would use Memento black ink with alcohol markers. You don't use the same kind of ink as you have markers because it runs together. So you want to use like opposites. So this is just, but for Shrinky Dinks, because I'm coloring, see that's okay. For Shrinky Dinks, I'm coloring on the other side. I'm using alcohol markers, in this case the blends, and I'm using alcohol ink. All right, so now we have all the parts colored with pumpkin pie. So that's pretty much the best orange I have. Now I'm gonna just do So Saffron and Balmy Blue. So Saffron is a good color for, it's a type of yellow. Now every time you get blends, if you don't have to get them this way, but they come in pairs. You get a light and a dark blend, but it's not necessary when you're coloring Shrinky Dinks to blend colors, because all you're doing is throwing on a little layer of ink, and it's gonna, when it shrinks, when your plastic shrinks, these inks get concentrated. So I'm taking the dark of every pair. So now I'm doing Balmy Blue. I'm taking the dark section of every pair and I'm just coloring it, and it doesn't even go on, like you can't really see it that much. You're like, oh, it's plastic, and this is really, now if this were paper you could tell it's Balmy Blue. I'm just using the thick side too. Every marker has a thick side, like a brush side, and a thin side. Okay, I'm just using the thick side because it's forgiving, because it's not, hopefully the ScanNCut just still recognizes the black lines and not this. Okay, so that's good. Now the Balmy Blue. Now we'll do the Daffodil Delight. This is Daffodil Delight. Oops, I didn't mean to do the ribbon. You can rub it off real quickly, but not too quickly. I think I have to color over it. It sticks on pretty well, the alcohol ink. But if you catch it quick, you can rub it off. Like here. It's good to have a little wet wipe with you, because you can rub off the ink if you mess up. All right, so that's the Daffodil Delight, and I'm using Highland Heather for this one. I'm just covering over the yellow part. And you don't have to be as precise when you're coloring Shrinky Dinks, because it is, like I said, it's forgiving. I'm going to go back over that with yellow. When they shrink, these will each get darker. So don't forget that little part of the jacket right there. And I'm going to hit it with the Daffodil Delight again, because that little section got messed up. And if you're not comfortable rubbing with your markers, you can kind of do this little, just touching it like that, and it kind of really is nice. And I noticed the collar should be purple or Highland Heather, right? The collar, not yellow. You notice I'm just like having fun with this. I mean, it's not like, ooh, my ducks aren't pretty. I mean, these are so cute. They're going to be so cute. And then I have these now. This last color is the Mango Melody. Oop, is this the dark? That was Mango Melody. I was supposed to do this one. I was supposed to do Mango Melody and Flirty Flamingo and Daffodil Delight. This is Daffodil Delight and Highland Heather. But instead, And that's what I did up there. Instead, I did, this one should be the Mango Melody. I'll have it all listed, the color combinations I used. And they're going to be so small, it doesn't really matter. In fact, use whatever you have. That's what I recommend. Use whatever you have. You might not have all the colors I have. I think I have every color of Stampin' Blend that they've ever made. All right, so then this is Flirty Flamingo. Looks like the marker's getting a little loose on top. So Mango Melody and Flirty Flamingo. I'm just trying to use colors that sort of coordinate together, even though they're going to shrink, but only because I'm going to use them on different papers and different projects. And what I do with Shrinky Dinks is use them as embellishments, but you can also use them as, you can make little keychains and trinkets and earrings. I mean, you name it. All right, so that's that. So that was the Flirty Flamingo. Now I already done this, I've done the Sharpie marker, so we'll just do one more set. I've done a green jacket. We'll do a pink jacket with the Sharpie marker. We will do a yellow. And I'm going to just use this darker orange for the, no, I'm going to use this lighter orange for the beak. Now you can't really tell, but this is an orange. See, this is a type of orange. It's a different shade than the yellow is. I'm going to use this for the feet and the beak. I mean, who doesn't have Sharpie markers in their craft room, right? You can get started on this project with your Sharpie markers. Now I'm going to do some yellow for the body. And it squeaks a little when you do the Sharpie marker. Okay, good. And we left with the pink. Make the pink hat, pink rain jacket. Okay. Almost done. And then what I would do then is let these dry. Just 5 minutes or so. Because I'm going to be cutting these dark side up. The stamp side up. So I just found I have more success with... So I'm going to let these dry. In other words, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to be scanning them with this side up. So I'm going to let this side dry because I don't want the marker to be stuck on my Brother ScanNCut mat. So as soon as these dry, I'm going to be scanning them. Now, this is what this is for. You need a fine Sharpie marker. If you find that there's gaps, and if you find that the ScanNCut is not recognizing your ducks, then you get a Sharpie and you fix some of your ducks using my pencil trick, except you need a Sharpie trick because these are Shrinky Dinks. You need a permanent marker. So if you find that something's not being recognized, you can fill in the outline with the black Sharpie. All right, so we're letting these dry. Then I'm going to be scanning them and cutting them next with the SDX 125. See you in a little bit. Now it is time to cut out our Shrinky Dinks using our SDX 125. They're all dry. We're all happy with them. Now, here's the thing. I've tried to scan them in before using the sheet itself placed straight onto the mat. And they were not recognizable. And maybe that's because my mat's kind of dirty. Okay? But just, this worked for me. So I'm going to teach you something that should work for you. Okay, this tip. So take a piece of white paper. Okay? So here's the tip. You're going to take your stamped images. Now, we're going to scan on this side because this is the side with the Stazon black ink. Okay? So we're going to scan on the side. I'm going to take my piece of Shrinky Dink material and I'm going to put it on my mat. I'm going to put a piece of painter's tape there because it needs to stay exactly in the place. You'll see why. But you don't want to cover up the registration marks. These are needed for the ScanNCut when it's scanning. So let's move this down just a little bit more. There we go. Okay, good. So now, just for scanning purposes, I'm going to take the piece of 8.5 by 11, a sheet of white paper, and I'm going to put it under there. Now, the white paper needs to be able to come out, so don't tape the white paper, right? You're only taping the acetate. See that? So I'm putting white paper in just for scanning. Now, this has become really thick. So here's what we need to do. And before I even load the mat, I'm using the SDX 125. And when you have thick materials, you need to move your lever on the side of your machine to 2. It lifts the scanning plate away. Okay, so up to 2. And if you don't, it'll probably tell you that you need to do that. The ScanNCut will tell you need to do that. So now we're ready. So I'm going to load the mat. Oops. See, it's already kind of loading in crooked. Let's see. Let's do this again. We have to keep on rolling after all. I'm putting my fingers there, but not, I don't want them to get caught into the roller, so I'm just giving it a little nudge. Okay, so now we're ready. We're ready to do some scanning. So let me tilt my camera a bit and turn off my extra light so you can see that really well. There you go. So we have pattern and scan. Where's my stylus? Okay, you're gonna go to scan. We're gonna directly cut out the stamped images. Let me see if I can make that a little better for you. There we go. Better angle. Okay, we're going to directly cut out the stamped images. So we're using direct cut. Now this is asking where do you want to save the information. We're going to save it temporarily to our machine. So you're going to select the machine. We want 12 by 12 recognition mode. Okay, because this piece is longer than 12 by 6. And we want to, even though we have colored images, we're going to keep it on black and white recognition mode. That's this button here. Even though your stamped images are colored in, don't use color recognition mode when you have well-defined lines like we do, because it'll just take way longer to use color recognition mode. I hardly ever use that. And we're going to hit start. It's telling you scanner lever is set to position 2. It's telling you that. That's okay. I want it on position 2, but it's telling you, like, if you don't have thick material, you may want to change it back to position 1. It's just giving you a little reminder. So now it's scanning in the ducks. And you have your, if it doesn't scan them all, you have your trick I told you about using the extra Sharpie marker. We're going to say okay. But it scanned them all. It did a pretty good job. But if not, you can enclose any extra gaps with your black fine tip Sharpie marker. So now what you want to do, and you want to do this with any stamped images, you want to frame the part that you want to cut out. Okay. We also want to ignore, so we have that part is just where our ducks are. We have our ducks in a row. Ignore object size. We can, I don't know, we'll ignore up to 1 inch or so, a little over an inch, doesn't matter. As long as you don't ignore anything bigger than the duck itself, it'll get rid of any stray bits. Now when we say okay, we put our outline distance around them. Then it sort of forgave us, this little part here is not going to cut. So this little part, this one duck, even after adding an outline distance and ignoring object size, it still has an opening. It still has a gap. Meaning it's trying to cut in the inside of that duck. That is okay. What I'm going to do is edit out that duck. I'll catch him later. I'm going to just delete that duck for now. I'll fix it with my marker, and I'll cut out the rest of the ducks because we don't want to fight one little duck. Poor little duck. Okay, let's say okay. So now we're going to say cut. So we have an outline distance of 0.04, so you know, okay. We have our acetate loaded. We're going to say cut. Now before we cut, okay, very important here, is this. I need to remove this piece of white paper. This is not cutting, right? This is just my white piece of paper that I helped for scanning. Okay, now you want to do this too. I'm going to take this is just because I don't want these to slip. These are my Shrinky Dinks. This material is expensive. Well, it's not that expensive. It's less than $10 for like 10 of them. Anyway, it's not expensive, but point is, you still don't want to waste it. So I'm going to put painter's tape on all the sides of this acetate. Just so it doesn't slip while it's cutting. I'm even putting it along the bottom. Now, I'm going to go back because you see how it doesn't stick down very well. I'm also going to give it a little rub. I'll give it a little rub before it's cutting. There you go. So always you can tap down now. I don't want to rub over the stamped images themselves. I don't want to, even though they're way dry, I just try to get in the habit of not to rub right over stamped images. All right, so it's taped down. It's stuck down. Everything's good. Pulling back to the screen. Everything's good. I'm happy. So now we can say cut. Now it's going to take a couple minutes. And I'm sorry. I'm hitting my camera instead of hitting my ScanNCut. Okay, so we're going to say start. I'm not going to make you wait the whole 2 minutes, but I do want to say that if it does try to do, It feels like the material's thicker. And we'll see if it does this first before I tell you. So see how it just updated to 4 minutes. Let it do it this time. I usually tell you that when your ScanNCut updates and it's going to take twice as long, it doesn't really need to do a second pass. In this particular case, it does need to do a second pass. Let it cut through twice because this material is very thick. So we'll see you in 4 minutes. The ducks are finished cutting. You're going to click OK. And we're going to remove the mat. And I'm going to turn on my light and show you what we have. So this, of course, I would finish cutting out that one as well. That Shrinky Dink down here. That one I have to scan back in and try to cut. So this is great. So I'm happy with this. So we're going to take off the painter's tape. Okay, now here we have our little ducks. Now save your painter's tape, but not too much. Save it enough. Sorry for the glare there. I'm going to go ahead and turn back off that light. You don't really need it. Oh, I guess the glare's from the overhead light. So you want to save your painter's tape, but not too many times because you don't want it to get stuck in your machine. So at this point is when you would punch holes. If you're going to make earrings, jewelry, etc. Now I tried large hole punches. Let me just pull off. I'm going to pull off a duck. So here's a duck. I've tried large hole punches and the holes were just way too big, even after they shrunk. Okay, so I just have a hole punch, and you could punch a hole in its head. But I'm gonna recommend this kind of hole punch, like a really tiny hole punch, 1/8 of an inch, 1/16 of an inch. I'm not even sure how small this is, but this is what you could punch a hole. I'm just punching a hole in the top of the duck. Okay, so that I put a hole right there. Let me show you that with my pokey tool. See? So I put a little tiny hole in it. And again, I'm using the Label Me Fancy Punch because it has a place for a tiny hole, and it has a place for this is for making a tag. So that's the hole punch I'm using. Just find the smallest hole punch you have. If you want to put this on a string, which I don't really do that with mine. I put them on glue dots and use them as embellishments. But we're doing that to one of them so you can know what to do. I want you to get the full picture of how to work with Shrinky Dinks. Now save this extra material. Okay, save it, because you can still stamp other things onto it. Or maybe you can use it as an acetate window. Now what I'm going to do next is take this to my kitchen and bring my camera to the kitchen. I'm going to show you how to bake the Shrinky Dinks. Okay, and we'll put these on a tray and everything. So we'll see you in a couple minutes. Crafty friends, I have moved this operation to my kitchen. I have lined a cookie sheet with foil, and now what I'm doing is getting one extra little piece of foil. In case some of my Shrinky Dinks come up out of the oven curled up, I can press down on them with foil. So now I'm going to take my Shrinky Dinks, and you're going to just remove them from the mat and put them on your cookie sheet. Same way, just facing up. I mean, I did the ink side up. It doesn't really matter which side up. Just make sure that, because they're going to curl. Boy, that one's coming out. It's a little hard to get off. They're going to curl up. So you want to make sure. Here, let me just do that off camera here. There we go. So what I'm doing is I'm using my spatula to put them on here. And you want to keep them away from each other in case they curl and move a little bit. You don't want them too close together. Now my oven has preheated. 325. It's preheated up to 325 degrees, that's all. And this only takes 1 to 3 minutes. So I thought it'd be fun in this video just to show you like the Shrinky Dinks baking, because I know I am excited to see the Shrinky Dinks baking. So I'm going to put these in the oven. I'm going to turn on my camera and the light of the oven, and you can watch through the oven as these bake. Crafty friends, they've been in the oven for about 1 minute. They only take 1 to 3 minutes to bake. As you can see, they're curling up, despite my door of my oven being quite dirty. You see how they curl up, and then they flatten out. And we want to take them out after they get flat. And you don't want them to burn because they'll be discolored. So I asked Alexa to set the timer for 3 minutes, so I make sure I don't go over 3 minutes. Oh, they're looking really cute, and they all look flat to me. So I will open up the oven and show you. So I hope you can get a good look at that. I'm going to zoom in. Okay, so now I'm going to take them out of the oven and I'll meet you at the counter where I can show you how to flatten out any ones that come out curled up. My Shrinky Dinks stayed in the oven for exactly 3 minutes and they came out pretty flat. But if not, while they're still hot, you can use a piece of foil over the top of them like I'm doing here, just to make them get flat while they're still warm. Now you don't do this after they're already cooled off because, as you can see, mine are already cooled off, so that's not really going to help me. But while they're still hot, they can be shaped. And the reason I use foil is so you don't burn your hand, okay? And of course, don't let the children flatten them out. You'd want to do this yourself, just for safety reasons. So that's how I get my Shrinky Dinks to flatten out. All right, so now that I have these cute little embellishments made from stamped images, I'm going to show you some ideas of what to do with them. So I'll see you back in my craft room. Crafty friends, that was really fun. I apologize for how dirty my oven was and how you couldn't really see the Shrinky Dinks shrinking, but you get the idea because I showed you afterwards. Now let me just compare this for you. So you have, this was our original image size of our duck, and that's what a Shrinky Dink looks like. Okay, so that's how much they shrank, and I just couldn't get a good camera angle. Then I tried to do the whole video again for you. I cut out more Shrinky Dinks, and then I tried to use a toaster oven, and this is what happened. So don't use a toaster oven because they curl up, although you can watch them better and easier. They just curl up. So you need a big oven, works better. All right, so here's why we make Shrinky Dinks. And not just, I mean, because it's something to do and it's fun, but we can use them. They're very useful as embellishments. You can add 3D items to your project. So I threw together these 5 little cards just now, and then I have another box I did with some bunny Shrinky Dinks. I'll show you that last. So here is Let Love Grow, and this is just this month's Paper Pumpkin. I took out the blank cards to show you what I started with. So in our Paper Pumpkin kit for Stampin' Up, these are the 3 blank cards I started with. In fact, I'll just put them down and then show them to you as we do them. How about that? So here's a blank card I started with in the Paper Pumpkin kit. So then to make this card, I stamped grass that came in the kit. I stamped Let Love Grow and 3 little hearts. The grass and Let Love Grow is in shaded spruce, and then the little hearts are Calypso Coral. And then there's the little Shrinky Dink next to Mama. Okay, and I could have used the little stamp too, but had I used the stamp from the Fable Friends stamp set, I can't turn the little duck the other direction. Okay, so with this, well, I mean, you can if you do some kinds of techniques, but we're not going to get into all that. It's just basically it's hard to turn these around without doing some kinds of tricks. But that's how I made my little duck turn around, because the Shrinky Dink is translucent. So, and it's also 3D, so that's really nice. You have this piece of plastic and it makes your card pop. Okay, so that's how I did that one. And then again, I used this card base here, again, and I put 2 little Shrinky Dinks facing each other, the little ducks. No matter the weather, we're in this together. This one was colored with Balmy Blue, and I think this one was one of the Sharpie markers. I made it like a little boy and girl duck kind of, but you know, even though they have little hats on. I guess they're both girl ducks. And then I stamped the clouds in Balmy Blue. And I used these little epoxy raindrop stickers. Hope you can see them. All right, so next card, I have this. I started with this card base, just like this, came out of the Paper Pumpkin kit, stamped some grass on it in shaded spruce, stuck a couple of the Shrinky Dinks onto the card, and no matter the weather, we're in this together. So to stick the Shrinky Dinks onto the cards, I just used glue dots because glue dots are translucent. You probably could have used liquid glue as well. Okay, 4th card, I used this. This is the card base I started with, just blank, and then I stamped some gray granite clouds. Some I stamped straight on, some I stamped onto a piece of paper and then onto the card. Little epoxy raindrops and some little Shrinky Dinks. Now, if I had used the stamped images on this card, you know, 2 of them, and I would have had to do some tricks to get this one to turn that way, then it would have just not, it wouldn't give me the same effect, because this is a note card, so I wanted something small and they look cute. And then this is the card where I punched the hole. I showed you how to make a hole using the label punch, and so I just dangled him, this little duck, off of some twine, because the hole is big enough to put twine through. So this should give you an idea of how to make jewelry with your Shrinky Dinks. So great activity for, for the family. Making keychains, jewelry, all kinds of things. So I just made a little trinket. This is using the embellishment from the paper pumpkin kit, no matter the weather, the March paper pumpkin kit I've been using. Same with that stamp. And this background raindrop paper is from the Please Does Punch Designer Series paper. All right, endless fun with Shrinky Dinks. I mean, I'm having so much fun making Easter things. So here's what I did with some bunny Shrinky Dinks. This is the Welcome Easter stamp set, which I've featured on my channel before. And these are just little bunny Shrinky Dinks that I made to go. So they match the little bunny on a wobble. And this is a pizza box, and there's lots of treats in there, but I'm not going to open that again. So these are just ideas of what you can do with Shrinky Dinks. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you'll go out and stamp some yourself and make some and color them and cut them out and have a lot of fun and appreciate this extra time you may have to craft and try new things like this project here. Thank you for watching. This is the Papered Chef.